Hi guys, welcome back. If you're seeing this face for the first time, welcome. Especially, I'm Krymkat and host of Relationship Recipes with Krymkat, which is my podcast where I share and help you build the relationship of your dreams by sharing with you wisdom and giving you tips and the knowledge that you need to build the life that you want. Welcome to another episode, and I'm so excited for what we're talking about, situationships. This is very interesting because I don't know how I feel about them. I feel very strongly. But before I start to share my own views, which is what I'm going to be doing today, I think why I feel very strongly about them, maybe it's because I've been on the receiving end of what they can do negatively. Some psychologists argue for, not against. And there's this trend, I think it's a trend in our generation, where we are quick to say, okay, before we argue against stuff, let's try to argue for it. But even when the thing is not making sense, we'll still be trying to argue for it. Either which way. With that being said, for those who probably don't know what it is, or maybe have an idea, but they're not really sure if what they think is actually what it is, let me tell you what situationships are. Situationships are relationships that are romantic but are not defined. They are relationships that are romantic in nature but do not have a commitment undergirding it. So this is a man and a woman actually behaving exclusive, in terms of the perks of what a committed relationship would give. And there is no definition. They are not anything, but they are just romantically involved with each other. Now, this is so common in our generation, and there are so many reasons why. If you go out and you look, psychologists kind of largely blame online dating for it. But then in the part of the world where I am, online dating is thriving, but it's not thriving as much as it is in other parts of the world. But then we still have this thing of situationships coming up, you see. So I rather than just blame it on that, I think it's just a thing that has come with our generation. And if you ask me why I think it's so prevalent, is the reluctance to commit. Like, our generation has seen a lot of the backlash from broken relationships, failed relationships that didn't work out. And rather than say, okay, let's situationships is this generation's way of trying to cope with the chaos, you see. So instead of just going into relationships that might potentially break your heart, cause problems for you, you're just like, you know what, let me just catch cruise. I'm not that old. Let me just enjoy myself. Let me just, what does it take? Let me just be here and not really commit. So with running away from commitment, we think that we can mitigate the effect of a heartbreak, you see, that comes with other kinds of, with committed relationships largely. If you ask me, it did not work. Yeah, the plan failed. It didn't work because if we were trying to run away and escape the problems that committed relationships bring, I think situationships kind of escalate it. Because if you are afraid of heartbreak, one of the very first things that situationships can give you is heartbreak. And guess what? The heartbreak from situationships are usually more lethal. They're usually more lethal than the heartbreaks from a committed relationship. And guess why? I think one of the reasons why it's more painful is because you don't have a right to be angry. Like, that is one of the most annoying parts of a situationship. You don't have a right to be angry. You don't have a right to blow off. I mean, this person can just walk away and just ghost you. And you don't have a right. You can't even shout. You can't even tell people what is doing you, because there's nothing that should be doing you, because you're actually not in a relationship. So the thing that people are trying to avoid, it now happens in a way that is, if you ask me, catastrophic. So situationships, having romantic entanglements without that verbal commitment, is something that's come in our generation, and I think should leave quite frankly, I think should leave, because there are two ways I think the whole situationship thing goes. And one way is that you have that heartbreak where the other person is like over it and person just walks away. Maybe they are no longer interested, or their playtime is over, and they just want to, move on. Another part that can happen is that you kind of have Odeshi. If you're not Nigerian, Odeshi is like chest. It's still, when I say chesting, it's still the same thing. Odeshi is like not feeling the impact of something. So maybe like you spank a child and the child does not cry, the child does not feel it. So we say that the child did Odeshi. So when you say Odeshi for heartbreak, it's like, this thing ideally should hurt me, but I'm not hurt. Like, I actually backed out, like, without any scars on me. What that does is that it breeds in you the habit of shallow relationships. And before you know it, it becomes now difficult to form a deep connection with somebody, because you've made a habit of forming shallow relationships because of your background in situationships. So even if you are not hurt emotionally in a way that you're saying, okay, this thing broke my heart, this thing pained me, this thing is really, really painful, you are hurt in the ecosystem of relationships, in your heart, in your mindset, in your belief system. You're building a belief system around lack of depth, lack of vulnerability. So you start to learn the techniques of how not to have a deep relationship, to be able to survive in situationships. And when the time comes when you really want to build something deep, you don't have the tools anymore, because the way you have programmed your mind, programmed yourself, you're not able to stay within the context of a committed relationship that requires you to be vulnerable, that requires you to get to depths of yourself that you ordinarily wouldn't reach in a shallow situationship. So, however you want to look at it, situationships are doing you more harm than good. If this was a debate right now, I would like to be saying I'm putting forth my points, but those are the two ways that situationships can go. And it can be very devastating. Now, why do we have a problem of situationships? I think we are a generation that probably has lost the place for friendships. And that's one thing we can learn from previous generations. They were genuine friends. Like, you do not have to be romantically entangled. They could just be guys and girls, and they were friends, and they were very, very helpful to each other. They were huge supporters of each other. And nothing was getting in the way. So if there was a point where someone felt like they wanted to transition that relationship into something romantic, into something deeper, there was no, how do I put it? They're not trying to get to know each other like that, the way we make it look as if, oh, we're trying to get to know each other. It's talking stage. I'm not even going to go there today. And so we're building like that situationship, because I believe a lot of times when you find yourself in a situationship that you did not intentionally plan to be in, because some people plan to be in situationships, yeah. But when you find yourself in a situationship you originally planned to be in, it was most likely a talking stage that led you there. So you want to now ask yourself, like, why is it that our generation does not like to just have friends? Male friends, guy friends, girls, male friends, males, girlfriends. Like, why don't we like to have female and male friends and just thrive in those relationships? Because I feel like when you really want to build romantic relationships, they build on friendship. Yes, not everybody is going to start from being friends. But rather than take yourself into that entangled romantic space, why not build a friendship? Why not just be friends? Why not just be in their corner, cheer for them, be their friend, and then just let it lie that way? Why do you now have to take it to that place where it's romantic, where you're now having expectations and making demands, and then there's no verbal commitment, so you cannot even legally demand what you're demanding for? There's no right. So when you are asking for that time, you don't really have a right to be asking for that time, because we're just taking advantage of each other emotionally. That's really what it is to me. right? You feel like this person can meet your emotional needs, and that person feels like you can meet their emotional needs, and there's no need to actually define it. So you keep taking advantage, and then the time comes, it always comes in every situationship, where either the person walks away or just wants something different, or one person starts wanting more. One person starts having expectations. One person starts saying, hey, you see, this is our serve me, I serve you is not working again for me. I want to define this. I want something more defined. And then that's where problem starts. So I think situationships, the way they are tailored, I think they build and they feast around our insecurity as a generation. They feast around our problems, in quote, as a generation. And so they are not solutions, in the sense that they are like coping mechanisms that are causing more problems. So if you ask me, what should you do with a situation? But I would say avoid them with your whole life. Avoid every form of situationship with your life, with your spirit, with your soul, with your body. Don't get into situationships. Don't be a situationship person. And just try to build genuine friendships with people. Try to get to know people, be their friend. Don't go overboard trying to now get it into a romantic space. No. If you ask me, honestly, all these talking stages, I don't feel like we need to do them if we really pursue genuine friendship with people, you see. So, yeah, I don't think situationships are healthy. I think they are some sort of a coping mechanism we build around what we have found to be a problem as a generation, and we don't want to go about solving it the right way or the hard way. So we kind of look for what can suffice for now, and then mount on it. And then another thing I think is a major thing when we talk about situationships is that we kind of we place an exaggerated value on romantic relationship meeting our needs as human beings. A lot of times we do not appreciate the fact that our friendships can meet our relational needs. You see, and that's why we find the need to go into situationships. If you believe that your friendships, your community, you can have solid support, you can just be filled emotionally from that community, that support system that you create, I do not think we will be pushing the narrative of situationships. You see, so rather than put yourself in romantic cycles where there is no definition just to meet certain needs and then just back off without having to explain yourself anytime you want, leave the other person hurt or you be left hurt, why don't we focus on building communal relationships, building friendships, building solid support systems that can actually fuel us and meet emotional needs? Why do we have to now create that pseudo-romantic setting and just set up ourselves to burst? I think we underestimate and we do not really appreciate the power of friendships, the power of community, of support systems in our generation, and that is what is fueling this situationship craziness. And I think it can go. So what I'm saying is that I do not support situationships. I do not think that they meet the problem. They are a solution, because we find so many issues with committed relationships and issues with getting out of them, because our generation, if it's not working initially, we want to get out, which is not how things work. So I think we should actually take a look back and say, am I actually getting the most out of friendship? What is friendship to me? How are my friends meeting my needs? How am I building my friendships to create a succor kind of system in my life where I am not beginning to crave and demand that emotional needs are met in certain kind of ways from these pseudo kind of romantic relationships? I'm not saying your friends can meet all your emotional needs. No. If you are really supposed to be in love, you're really supposed to be married and all of that, you would actually need it and you will know. And eventually you meet that person and build that life with. But beyond that romance, love and everything, I think friends can provide a lot more that we are not tapping into. And if our generation can tap into that, we might not necessarily see the need to keep creating these pseudo-romantic settings that hurt us, whether they do it directly or indirectly, through directly causing heartbreak or making us to become practitioners of shallow, meaningless relationships. So these are the few points of mine. I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you. Guys, if you were in secondary school in Nigeria, you know that lie. That's how we used to debate. But either which way, I hope this, you were able to get some things, you were able to get some answers, and this was able to trigger some questions in your head, and you're like, yeah, are we really doing the right thing in this generation? Is there something right? Can I pursue my friendships more? I really hope that this video did that for you. Thank you so much for always engaging my videos and sharing it with people that you feel like need it. Please, I will always leave a link in the description where you can ask me questions and I'll answer it in a dedicated video. Expect that video soon. It should be the next or the upper next, whatever. So expect the video soon, and I know it's gonna be so good. Thank you so much. This is me leaving you with love, light. Bye.